On the far side of the broken moon Viron 9, there was an old mining colony covered in dust and silence. Buildings stood half-fallen, rusted metal walls shaking in the wind. The skies were orange, filled with clouds of ash and smoke. Machines no longer worked, and the people who once lived here had all disappeared. All except one. Behind a pile of old cargo crates, something moved, small, quiet, almost invisible. It was a girl. Or at least something like a girl. Her skin was a soft gray-blue, her arms thin like twigs, her feet bare and dirty. Her eyes glowed faintly yellow in the dark. Like two little stars, her name was Luma. She did not remember much, only that she used to live somewhere warm, with green skies and singing birds, but that place was gone, destroyed in the war. Now she hid here, alone, hungry, cold. No one came looking for her, and that made her feel both safe and forgotten. Luma had not eaten for 3 days. Her small stomach made soft noises, and her hands were weak. She wrapped her arms around her knees and sat very still. She had learned that movement attracted attention, and attention could be dangerous. Sometimes strange men came to this place, looking for parts or fuel or treasure. They had ships, weapons, and cruel eyes. Once, one of them had seen her and tried to catch her. She had run fast that day, hiding in the vents of an old mining tunnel. Since then, she had stayed hidden, always watching, never trusting. Today, she was weaker than usual. She could barely keep her eyes open. The air was dry and the wind was cold. She thought maybe this was the end. Maybe she would fall asleep and not wake up. Then she heard footsteps, heavy, slow, crunching the gravel under strong boots. Someone was coming. Luma pressed herself tighter against the crates, holding her breath. Her heart beat fast, like a small animal trapped in a cage. The steps stopped, very close. She did not dare look. There was a pause, then the sound of something dropping. A small metal object rolled across the ground and stopped right in front of her. It was round and silver, with a green light blinking on top. A food capsule. Luma's eyes widened. She had not seen food in days, real food, clean and packed, not trash or bugs. Her mouth became dry, her hands shook, but she didn't move. What if it was a trap? What if the man was watching, waiting for her to show herself? She stared at the capsule for a long moment. Then, slowly, very slowly, she reached out one hand, fingers stretching toward it, almost touching. A voice spoke, soft but deep. "You can have it, kid. If you're not scared of me." Luma froze, her hand still in the air. She looked up, eyes wide with fear and surprise. Standing in front of her was a tall, old human man. His hair was white and wild, his beard rough and short. One of his arms was not real, it was metal, shining in the sun, moving with smooth clicks and whirs. His face was tired, but his eyes were kind. He crouched down slowly, keeping some distance. "I saw you yesterday," he said, voice calm and careful. "You were hiding near the fuel station. You don't have to run anymore." He added, "I'm not here to hurt you." Luma didn't answer, just stared. Her hand slowly pulled the capsule toward her chest, hugging it like a treasure. Still, she didn't eat it yet. The man nodded like he understood. He took off his small backpack and placed it on the ground. From inside, he pulled out a soft blanket and another capsule. He placed them gently in front of her and stepped back. "My name's Jonas," he said. "Used to be a soldier. Now I just travel, fix things, and stay out of trouble." He smiled a little. "You look like you could use a friend." Luma's lips moved, but no sound came out. She hadn't spoken in weeks, maybe months. She didn't even remember the sound of her own voice. Jonas didn't push her. He just sat on a nearby crate, looking at the sky. "Storm's coming soon," he said. "We should find shelter, real shelter. You can come with me if you want, or stay here, your choice." Luma looked at the capsule, then at the sky, then at Jonas. Something in his voice felt different from the others she had met. He wasn't angry or greedy or loud. He was tired, like her, but not cruel. For the first time in a long time, She felt a small spark inside her chest. Hope, a tiny, flickering hope. She opened the capsule and took a bite. Warmth spread through her body, and tears fell from her glowing eyes. Jonas didn't say anything. He just waited. Maybe, just maybe, she wouldn't have to run anymore. The wind howled through the metal bones of the dead colony. The air smelled like rust and sorrow, but inside a half-buried transport shelter, there was a small fire glowing. It was weak, like the little girl who sat near it, but it was alive, and so was she. Jonas sat across from her, sharpening a broken blade with a smooth stone. He didn't speak unless she looked at him, and even then, his words were soft, like whispers over ash. He had seen war. Planets burning, friends dying, children crying. But something about this little alien girl touched a place in him that had been cold for many years. Her name, he found out later, was Luma. She had spoken it barely above a breath, her voice like a cracked shell. She didn't tell him more, and he didn't ask. She didn't need questions. She needed rest. That night, while she slept curled up in the blanket he gave her, Jonas looked at her and wondered why the universe had allowed this, a child no bigger than a shadow, left alone on a dying world. Where were the ones who were supposed to protect her? Where was the justice people talked about during peace meetings and war councils? He sighed, pulling his coat tighter. His old bones ached, not just from cold, but from memories. He'd had killed monsters and men. But this little lost girl, she made him feel helpless. By morning, Luma was gone. Jonas opened his eyes and saw only the fire's ashes, the blanket folded, the food untouched. For a second, panic hit him harder than any explosion ever had. He rushed outside, scanning the dust, the rocks, the empty shadows. Luma, he called, but the wind stole his voice. Then he saw small tracks in the sand, bare feet, walking slowly toward the edge of the ruins. He followed them. He found her standing at the edge of a cliff. Below, a massive pit opened like a crater, filled with the broken shells of old mining ships. The sun rose behind her, making her silhouette look even smaller, more fragile. "You were trying to leave without saying anything," Jonas said, his voice calm but tired. Luma didn't turn around. She whispered, "You'll leave me too." Jonas walked closer, step by step, not rushing. "I haven't yet," he said. "And I didn't carry you to safety last night just to watch you disappear." Luma turned her face slightly, eyes wet but glowing. "You'll sell me, like the others," she said, her voice shaking. "Everyone wants something." Jonas stood beside her now, looking into the deep pit below. "I've sold things in my life," he said, "but never people. I've lost too many already." He added, "I'm not losing you too." There was silence, heavy like a stone pressing on both of them. Then softly, Jonas reached into his coat and pulled out a small device. He tapped it, and a hologram flickered to life. A younger Jonas stood beside two smiling children, a human boy and an alien girl with golden eyes. "They were mine once," he said, his voice breaking. "A long time ago. What happened?" Luma asked, her voice barely there. "The war," he answered. "The same war that took your home. I lost everything. I wandered for years," Jonas said, "fixing broken machines, patching damaged ships, drinking myself to sleep. But yesterday I found something else." He looked at her. "I found you." Luma looked down, quiet for a moment. "Why me?" she asked. "I'm nothing." Jonas shook his head. "You're still alive," he said. "That makes you something. You're a survivor, and survivors are rare and important." She looked into his eyes, trying to see if he was lying. She had seen many lies in her short life, but this time she didn't find one. "Come with me," Jonas said, stretching his hand. "We'll get off this rock, find some peace, maybe even a home. I don't have a ship," he added, "but I know someone who owes me a favor." Luma hesitated, then took his hand. It felt strange. Warm, solid, safe. They walked back toward the shelter together, but something in the shadows moved behind them. Unnoticed, a red light blinked softly inside the hollow eye of a damaged scout drone. It had recorded everything, transmitted every word, every face, and far away, on a dark moon orbiting a cold gas giant, someone watched the feed with greedy eyes. "She's alive," the watcher said. "Find them. Bring me the girl." Back at the shelter, Jonas was packing supplies. Luma sat near the fire again. A little closer this time, a little less afraid. He handed her a warm jacket made for a child long gone. She put it on without speaking, but her eyes said enough. They would leave at dawn. But the galaxy was already watching. The hunt had begun. The ship was old, loud, and half-broken. Its metal belly rattled as it moved through space, coughing like a dying animal. But for Luma, it was the first time she felt like she was flying towards something instead of running away, Jonas called it the Ember. And even though it wasn't fast or pretty, it was home for now, inside the small cabin. Jonas worked with wires and paddles, trying to keep the ship alive one part at a time. Luma sat quietly in the corner, her knees pulled due her chest, her eyes watching everything. She was always watching, always listening, always thinking. They had been traveling for 3 days now. 3 quiet days with no danger, no screaming engines, no hunters in the dark. But there was something else growing between them, something soft and invisible, trust. Every time Jonas handed her food, she said thank you, even if it was barely a whisper. Every time she had a nightmare, he stayed nearby without speaking, just sitting, waiting until she felt safe again. And when she woke up crying once, he didn't ask what she saw. He just gave her a small device that played soft music and said, "This helped me once." But there was something Jonas didn't see. Not yet, something strange happening to Luma, deep inside her bones. It began with the dreams. Each night, she saw lights, colors, voices she didn't understand. She felt heat in her hands, like fire trapped under her skin. She would wake up, sweating, her fingertips glowing faintly, only for a second. Then it would vanish, like it was never there. She didn't tell Jonas, not because she didn't trust him, but because she didn't trust herself. What if something was wrong with her? But one day, something happened that changed everything. They were passing through a debris field, full of broken satellites and the remains of an old space battle. Jonas was steering carefully, but one large piece of metal broke loose and slammed into the side of the ship. The power went out, alarms screamed, and the lights died. The ship began to drift, shaking wildly. Jonas shouted over the noise, "Stay in the cabin, Luma. I need to get to the control panel." But as he opened the hatch to the lower deck, smoke poured out. Something sparked, then exploded, throwing him against the wall. Luma screamed his name, her body moving before her mind could stop her. She ran to him, found him breathing but bleeding from his forehead. The smoke was thick, and the fire was growing. The control panel was sparking with energy, broken wires dancing like angry snakes. Luma stood there, shaking, unsure of what to do. Her heart was pounding, her hands were cold. Then, something inside her clicked. A voice not from outside, but from within whispered, "You are not weak." She stepped forward, reaching out toward the control panel, her fingers glowing again, brighter than ever before. Jonas, barely conscious, opened his eyes and saw it, her hands lit with golden light, her eyes glowing like twin suns. She placed her hands on the wires, and for a moment, everything froze. No sparks, no fire, no sound, just light. Then slowly, the power returned. The alarms stopped, the engines hummed softly. The ship was alive. Again, Luma fell backward, breathing hard, her face pale but calm. Jonas crawled over to her, holding her carefully. "What did you do?" he asked, his voice full of wonder, not fear. "I don't know," she whispered. "I just felt it." He helped her sit up, wiping the blood from his forehead. "You fixed a broken system with your hands," he said, shaking his head. "That's not something normal." Luma looked down at her palms, which now looked just like before, small, thin, soft. "I've had dreams," she admitted. "Dreams of light, of flying, of people calling me a name I don't remember. Jonas stared at her, deep in thought. "I think you're more than just an orphan girl," he said slowly. "You're something they wanted to destroy, something they feared, but why?" Luma asked, her voice trembling. "Why me?" Jonas stood up, looking through the cracked window at the stars. "I fought in wars for many years," he said, "and once I heard whispers about a race called the Ellerin, beings who could shape energy, fix machines with a touch, even calm minds with a word. They were hunted, wiped out, seen as a threat by every empire," he added, "but no one ever found proof they were real." Luma looked at her hands again. "What if I am one of them?" she asked. "Does that mean they'll come for me?" Jonas turned to her, his eyes serious but kind. "They're already coming," he said, "but they'll have to go through me first." The ship flew on through the stars. Behind them, a shadow followed a silent ship with black sails and red eyes. The hunters had found her scent, and they would not stop. But this time, Luma wasn't alone. This time, she was ready to find out who she really was. Asterisk, the Ember moved through the stars like a ghost. Its engines were weak but silent, its path hidden behind clouds of space dust and broken comets. Jonas had turned off every signal, every light, even the music player Luma had started to enjoy. He wasn't taking chances now. Not after what she did, ever since she touched the ship's power core and brought it back to life. Jonas had been different. He still gave her food, still spoke kindly, but his eyes were watching the dark more than ever. He had seen power before, but never like that, not in a child, not in anyone, and now he knew something else they would come for her soon. He was right. It started with a whisper through the coms, a static signal breaking through the silence. Then came the ping, soft but sharp, like a needle tapping glass. Jonas checked the radar, and his heart dropped. A ship was behind them, and it was gaining fast. Not just any ship, but one painted black as coal, with a red symbol like a skull made of stars. The symbol of the Dust Runners, elite bounty hunters who took jobs no one else dared touch. Jonas had seen them once, during a war that never made the news. He had hoped they were all dead, but hope didn't survive long in this galaxy. He turned to Luma, who sat near the storage crates, hugging her knees. "You need to listen very carefully," he said, his voice sharper than before. She looked up, sensing the change in the air, the tension in his body. "What is it?" she asked quietly. "We've been found," he said, "and we can't outrun them." Luma's eyes widened. "Is it the people who want me?" Jonas nodded. "They're not people, not anymore," he said. "They're hunters, and they never miss their target." He moved fast now, opening compartments, pulling out gear, tools, a pulse blaster from the old war. "I need you to hide," he said. "No arguments. Just do it." "But I can help," she said, standing up. I have powers. Maybe I can stop them." Jonas knelt in front of her, gripping her shoulders. "You're not ready," he said. "What happened on the ship? That wasn't control, it was instinct. If you push too hard again, it might break you." Luma stared into his eyes, then nodded. He guided her into a hidden crawlspace behind the engine room, sealed it with a latch and placed a power dampener above it. "No scanners will find you here," he whispered, "no matter what happens. Don't come out until I say." She touched his hand before he closed it. "Don't die," she said. Jonas gave a half smile. "Not today, outside." The hunter ship had arrived. It didn't fire, not yet. Instead, it sent a message, voice only. Cold as space itself. "Give us the girl," it said. "No blood needs to be spilled. Just hand her over." Jonas replied with a shot from his pulse cannon. No more talking. The battle began. The Ember was old, but Jonas knew how to fly it like a razor through fire. He twisted through asteroid belts, skimmed the edges of small moons, dodged frozen comets and gravity wells. The hunter ship followed. Faster, stronger, but not smarter. Jonas used every dirty trick he knew: decoy flares, smoke trails, silent drops. But the enemy was learning fast. One blast hit the rear engine, and the ship shook violently. Luma screamed from inside her hiding place, clutching the sides, but she stayed quiet. She trusted him. Even when everything outside sounded like the end, Jonas grunted, his shoulder bleeding from a panel that exploded mid-turn. The ship's power was dropping. Life support was falling. He needed an idea, and fast. He turned the ship toward the nearest moon, one covered in electric storms and magnetic fields. It was dangerous, unstable, full of chaos, but it was also the only place they might disappear. The hunter followed him in, but it made a mistake too fast, too confident. The storms hit it like hammers, frying its shields, shaking its aim. Jonas cut the embers' power and let the magnetic winds carry them deep into a canyon. They dropped like a stone, silent and dark, hidden in the storm. Minutes passed, then hours. The hunter didn't find them. Eventually, it left, damaged, confused, and angry inside the ember. Everything was still. The fire was out, the lights low. Jonas crawled back to the engine room, opened the latch, and found Luma curled up in silence. She looked at him, her face pale, her hands glowing faintly again. "I felt it," she whispered. "I felt them out there, like their thoughts, their anger." Jonas sat beside her, breathing hard. "Your power is growing," he said. "And we're running out of time." Luma nodded. "Then teach me," she said. "Before they come again." Jonas stared at her, this little girl with the heart of a survivor and the soul of a storm. He nodded slowly. "All right," he said, "but if I teach you, you need to understand this won't be easy." Luma's eyes burned with quiet fire. "I don't want easy," she said. "I want to fight back, and somewhere far away, in the dark corners of space." New voices were whispering. Some wanted to capture her, some wanted to worship her, and some wanted to destroy her before she became something too powerful to stop. But for now, the girl and the old man rested in silence. They had survived the first hunt, but the real war was just beginning. The moon was silent now. No hunter ships, no alarms, no signals in the stars, just cold wind and the crackle of magnetic storms far above the rocky cliffs. Jonas had landed the ember deep inside a canyon where no scanners could reach. It was broken, bruised, but still alive, just like him, and just like her. Luma stood in front of a jagged wall of stone, her arms raised, her hands glowing softly. Sweat ran down her temple. Her knees shook, but her eyes were full of fire. The rock in front of her trembled, then cracked. A thin line of energy pulsed across its surface like lightning in slow motion. Then it faded, and the stone was still again. Jonas clapped once, slow but proud. "That was better," he said. "You're getting stronger." Luma dropped her arms and fell to her knees, breathing hard. "I'm trying," she said. "But it hurts. It feels like pulling fire from inside my bones." Jonas walked over, helped her sit down on a piece of smooth metal they used as a bench. He handed her water and sat beside her, his old joints creaking. "When I trained soldiers," he said, "they cried the same way on the first day." "But I'm not a soldier," Luma whispered. "I'm just a broken thing someone threw away." Jonas looked at her with steel in his voice. "No," he said. "You are a secret that survived. And maybe," he added, "you're the weapon this galaxy doesn't know it needs." Luma didn't answer, but her eyes turned to the stars above. She was starting to feel it too, this thing inside her, growing, waking up. It wasn't just power, it was memory. Each time she trained, more pieces came back, voices in a language she didn't remember learning, images of glowing cities floating in the clouds. Hands reaching toward her, tall, beautiful hands with silver markings like hers. One night, she woke up gasping. Her chest burned, her eyes glowing so bright they lit up the entire ship. Jonas rushed in with a blaster, but dropped it when he saw her floating, her feet inches above the ground, her hair moving like it was underwater. Then it stopped. She fell, and he caught her before she hit the floor. "She's awakening," Jonas whispered. More to himself than to her. He looked at her face, peaceful now, but glowing with energy. "You're not just powerful," he said. "You're changing." But someone else had noticed too, far across the system, on a dark station hidden behind a black star. A group of beings gathered around a flickering screen. They wore long coats, metal masks, and spoke in low, flat voices. "She is Ellerin," one of them said. "The last one." "She cannot be allowed to rise," said another. "The prophecy is clear. If one survives, the balance shifts. She's not just Ellerin," the tallest one said. "She is the spark, the weapon." They turned to a figure standing in the shadows. Tall and silent, his eyes glowing red. "You know what to do," they said. The figure nodded once, then vanished, back on the moon. Jonas was teaching Luma how to focus. They built a small stone circle in the canyon where she could train safely. Each day, she lifted heavier rocks, stopped stronger winds, and created light that danced like fireflies. She still got nosebleeds, her legs still shook, but her control was growing. One morning, Jonas brought her something wrapped in a thick cloth. Luma opened it carefully and found a small metal cube, smooth and silver. "What is it?" she asked. "Something I took from a battlefield a long time ago," he said. "Never knew what it was until now." She touched it, and the cube lit up with blue light. It unfolded in her hands, turning into a floating symbol, 3 circles. Connected by a star, Luma stared at it, her mouth open. "I remember this," she said. "This is the symbol of the elders, the ones who raised me before the war." The device glowed brighter, projecting a hologram of a tall woman with silver skin and glowing eyes. She spoke in the Ellerin tongue, but somehow Luma understood every word. "To the last of us," voice said. "If you have found this, then you are the flame that survived the storm. Your voice will wake the others. Your light will burn away the dark." The hologram faded, and the cube folded back into her hands. Luma looked up at Jonas, her whole body shaking. "There are others," she whispered, "sleeping, hiding, scattered across space." Jonas nodded slowly. "Then we're not just running anymore," he said. "We're going to find them." But before they could plan anything, a sound filled the canyon, low, deep, mechanical. A ship was coming, fast, not a bounty hunter. This time, not a pirate. This one was quiet, sleek, and cold. A ship designed for only one purpose: erasure. Jonas stood, grabbing his blaster. "Get inside the Ember," he told Luma. Now, she didn't argue this time, but her hands were already glowing. "I can fight," she said. "Only if there's no other choice." Jonas said, "I'll buy us time." But when the enemy stepped from the ship, it didn't speak. It didn't demand or threaten. It just raised one hand, and the canyon floor exploded beneath them. Jonas went flying, landing hard against a wall. Luma screamed, eyes blazing, energy pouring from her skin like sunlight breaking through clouds. She rose into the air, her voice like thunder. "Enough!" The ground shook, the air cracked, and the figure froze mid-step. Its body shook as if something was pushing against it, something ancient, something angry. Jonas, bleeding and dizzy, looked up and saw her, not a little girl, not a scared orphan, but a glowing storm, a child of the stars, a secret weapon now awakened. The enemy stepped back for the first time, then turned and vanished in a flash of black light. Luma dropped to the ground, unconscious but breathing. Jonas crawled to her and held her tight. "You did it," he whispered. "You really are Ellerin." But in the shadows, something had changed. She was no longer just being hunted. Now the galaxy had seen her, and many had begun to whisper her name. Asterisk, the canyon was quiet again. Ash floated through the air like soft snow. The enemy ship was gone, the attacker defeated. But the silence didn't feel like victory. Jonas sat beside Luma's still body, holding her hand. She was breathing, but barely, her face pale, her energy dim like a fading star. He looked around at the ruined ground, the shattered rocks, the scorch marks from her power. She had saved him and herself, but the cost was heavy. Her gift was growing faster then. Her body could handle. He knew what that meant. She wouldn't survive another explosion like this one. Not without help. He carried her back to the Ember, laying her on the small cot where she once listened to music. Now her eyes were closed, her lips parted slightly. As if caught between sleep and a dream, Jonas touched her forehead, hot like a sunburn. He swallowed the fear rising in his chest, then reached for the med kit, knowing it wouldn't be enough. He needed something more, something ancient, something powerful, something he once swore never to return to. Jonas opened a hidden drawer under the cockpit floor. Inside was a dark metal key, shaped like a spiral galaxy, glowing faintly blue. He stared at it for a long time before whispering, "I hoped I'd never need you," outside. The Ember's engines roared to life again. Jonas set a new course deep into the forbidden zone of Sector 7, where dead stars circled black holes. There was a place there, hidden in time, called the Vault of Echoes. He had only been there once, during a secret mission decades ago. It held knowledge, technology, and things best left forgotten. But it also held a healer one who could fix more than bones. The trip was dangerous, through storms of gravity and cosmic lightning. Luma slept through it all, caught in visions he couldn't see. Her fingers twitched. Her skin flickered with gold and silver light. She was changing again, even without control. Even while unconscious, Jonas didn't rest, didn't eat, didn't blink for long hours. He just flew, focused, determined, afraid but unwilling to stop. When they arrived at the vault, it looked the same as before, a floating temple of shattered glass and stone, circling a cold star that hadn't shone in thousands of years. He landed on a broken platform, picked up Luma in his arms, and walked into the heart of the ruin. Voices whispered in the dark, not in words, but in thoughts. Old minds waking from sleep, recognizing something in the girl he carried. He shouted into the shadows, "I know you're here. She's one of them. She's Ellerin. You owe them." A shape appeared from the air itself, tall and formless, made of shifting mist and light. It had no face, but Jonas could feel it watching him. "You return," it said, "and you bring the child." "She's dying," Jonas said. "I need you to save her." "There is always a price," the voice said, echoing like distant thunder. "She carries the fire, and the fire cannot be healed for free." Jonas gritted his teeth. "I'll pay it," he said. Without thinking, the voice paused, then replied, "One life for another," it said. "You give her your strength, your light, your years." He didn't hesitate. "Take it," he said. "Take everything you need." The mist wrapped around them both, warm and cold at the same time. Jonas felt his body grow heavy, his limbs ache deeper. His breath slowed down, but Luma began to glow brighter, her skin warm again, her eyes fluttering. "Open," she gasped, sitting up with a sharp breath, then looked around in panic. "Jonas?" she called. "Where are we?" He knelt beside her, his hair now completely white, his face older, his hands shaking. But his smile was gentle. "We made it," he said. "You're safe now." Luma stared at him, confused. "What happened to you?" she asked, tears forming in her glowing eyes. "I gave a little," he said, chuckling softly. "Just a little time." She touched his hand, feeling how weak it was, how different. "You shouldn't have done that," she whispered. "You shouldn't have given so much." "I give it all again," he replied. "You're the one who matters now." The voice from the mist returned, quieter this time. "She is whole. But the fire will grow stronger still. Protect her well." Jonas nodded once, then stood slowly, helping Luma to her feet. They walked out of the vault together, into the cold starlight of the forgotten system. But something had changed. In both of them, Jonas was slower now, his time shortened. Luma was stronger. Her energy balanced, her memories clearer. In the days that followed, Luma became more focused. She trained harder, learned faster, and stopped doubting what she was. Jonas taught her everything he knew: how to fight, how to survive, how to think. Like a soldier, but act with heart. He gave her knowledge and the last pieces of his strength. One night, she stood at the front of the ship while he slept. Watching the stars pass by, she whispered a quiet promise into the dark. "I'll make it matter," she said. "Your sacrifice, your time, I won't waste it." But far across the galaxy, the shadows were not sleeping. The Dark Council had. Seeing what she had done, how she had survived, they now called her the Flame Child. And the price on her head had doubled. New enemies were moving. Not just bounty hunters, but something worse. And one of them was already close, hiding behind a false name, pretending to be a friend. The stars looked different now, brighter, louder, more alive. Luma stood at the front of the ember, her hands resting gently on the glass. Her eyes weren't just glowing, they were seeing, remembering, understanding. The memories were no longer shadows. They came in waves now, clear and powerful. Her real name had not been Luma, not at first. Her name had been Al-Yira Vayan. She was born under twin moons on the Ellerin homeworld of Sirith. She had been a child of light, chosen by the elders, trained to one day carry the voice of their people. But before her journey began, the sky had burned, and her world had vanished. They called it the Silence War, a war that erased not just lives, but languages, songs, cultures, entire histories. Her people had been hunted because they could heal, create, and awaken. And now she was the last echo of all of that, the last fire in the dark. Jonas slept behind her, weak but still smiling. His sacrifice had given her more than life. It had given her the strength to remember who she was. And now she had a mission, not just to survive, but to gather what remained, to call the others back from hiding, and to tell the stars that the Ellerin still lived. She turned on the ship's transmitter, a system Jonas had repaired with trembling hands. She breathed in deeply, then spoke in her ancient tongue, a language made of light and rhythm, filled with meaning deeper than words. But her voice translated across channels, to all systems, into all languages. "This is Al-Yira of the Ellerin," she said, her voice steady. "I am alive. To all who still carry the spark, to all who remember the light, you are not alone. I call to you now, rise, awaken, come home." She closed the signal and waited. Seconds passed, then minutes, nothing. Then one light blinked on the radar, then another, then 6 more, then 12, then 24, all silent for years. Now responding to her voice, Jonas woke slowly, blinking at the rising lights on the console. "What did you do?" he asked, his voice dry but full of awe. "I reminded them," she said, smiling softly, "that they still exist." They flew toward the nearest signal, an abandoned moon base near the edge of the Talvin Nebula. When they landed, they found a boy no older than Luma hiding in a buried chamber. He had glowing silver veins and eyes like the Sirith Ocean. His name was Vay, and he said only one thing before falling into her arms. "I heard your voice." In the weeks that followed, more king children, elders, a pair of twin sisters who controlled wind with their breath. They were scattered, scared, unsure, but they came. And wherever they landed, they looked at Luma, and they called her Flamebird, because she had lit the path no one else dared walk. But peace was not a gift. It had to be protected. The Dark Council had seen what she had done. They had lost the first chase, but now they were preparing something bigger, something final. They were building a weapon that did not destroy bodies, but memory. A pulse that could erase the last echoes of Ellerin thought from the galaxy forever. When Jonas learned this from one of his old spy contacts, he was silent for a long time. Then he called Luma to the map table, showed her the signal path, and said 3 words, "We have to stop it." She looked at the map, her face calm, no longer afraid. "This time," she said, "we don't run." They gathered their allies, now a fleet of Ellerin children, outcasts, hidden pilots, and even one rebel captain who once fought against Jonas during the war. They didn't have the power of armies, but they had purpose. And more importantly, they had Luma. They traveled in silence toward the origin of the pulse, a hidden station orbiting a dying red star. Luma led from the front. Her energy wrapped around the fleet like a soft flame. Jonas stood behind her, older now, slower, but proud like a father watching his child become the light he always knew she could be. As they approached, the enemy fired first, but Luma didn't need weapons to fight. She stood in the center of her ship and reached out, not with hands, but with her mind. She calmed the fire, redirected the energy, and turned the weapon back. On itself, the pulse exploded before it could be released, tearing the dark station apart from within. No lives were lost, only silence was destroyed. And for the first time in decades, the galaxy heard the Illyrians speak again after the battle. The fleet returned to the place where it all began, the canyon on the forgotten moon. There, the Illyrian built something new, not a fortress, not a temple, but a school. A place where no child would be hidden, hunted, or silenced again. A place where powers were nurtured, where memories were shared, where history was written once more. Luma stood at the highest point of the cliff with Jonas beside her. He leaned on a walking stick now, but his eyes still burned with pride. "Not bad," he said, looking at the rising buildings, the children flying in circles, the laughter in the air. "Not finished," she replied, "but just beginning." Jonas placed a hand on her shoulder. "You're more than the last Illyrian now," he said. "You're their leader." She looked at him with love and tears in her eyes. "No," she whispered. "I'm their voice." He nodded slowly. "Then speak." And she did. She spoke to the stars, to the planets, to every forgotten corner of the galaxy. Her voice carried not in sound, but in light, not in anger, but in hope. She was no longer just a lost little girl. She was no longer a secret hidden in the dust. She was the awakening, and the galaxy would never forget her name again.